Marlene Dietrich, the German-born actress who became an American movie legend.
At 60, Marlene Dietrich faced a devastating revelation. She quietly paid hush money to bury a forbidden affair, terrified that exposure would destroy everything she had built. Hollywood adored her as the divine screen goddess. Yet behind the glittering gowns lay a secret that could topple her empire. Imagine the scandal if the public had known the truth in that era of moral codes and unforgiving press. A single whisper could have ended her career, her family, her carefully cultivated image. But how did a girl from Berlin rise to such heights, only to live in fear of secrets unspoken? To understand, we must return to her beginnings, long before the spotlight found her. Marlene Dietrich was born in 1901 inches, Berlin, a city brimming with tension and beauty. Her full name was Marie Magdalene Dietrich, a name she later shortened into something sleeker, more glamorous. Her father, a strict police lieutenant, died when she was still a child. Her mother remarried, and young Marlene grew up in a household defined by discipline, rules, and a shadow of war lingering outside. Yet within this rigid environment, she discovered music. She studied violin, dreaming at first of becoming a professional musician before turning her attention to the stage. The Berlin of her youth was a place of contrasts. In the years after World War I, Germany was reeling from defeat, but Berlin blossomed into a cultural capital. Cabaret theaters lit up the nights, with smoky rooms filled with jazz bands, clinking glasses, and a new daring openness. Women bobbed their hair, painted their lips, and challenged convention. Men and women explored sexuality in secret bars and cafes, forming hidden worlds away from polite society. The Weimar era produced both a spirit of freedom and a heavy backlash from conservatives, and Dietrich absorbed both currents. She was a child of modernity, straddling two worlds. On one hand, she trained in strict conservatories, mastering technique and stage discipline. On the other, she prowled Berlin cabarets, fascinated by performers who pushed boundaries. Women in tuxedos singing love songs to other women, men in feathers and sequins mocking politics. These images shaped her sense of self, her sharp wit, her refusal to be boxed into tradition. In her early 20s, she found work in theaters and small film roles. She was striking, with wide cheekbones, hooded eyes, and a sultry presence that cameras adored. Though she was not yet famous, her reputation spread in the Berlin artistic circles. She embraced androgyny long before it became fashionable, dressing in men's suits, carrying herself with bold confidence. Those who knew her then described a woman who could silence a room simply by walking through it. Yet Berlin was unstable. Inflation ravaged the economy. Fascism brewed at the edges of politics. And artists like Dietrich could sense the fragile balance. She longed for greater stages, larger audiences, and perhaps a chance to escape the storms that were coming. Hollywood was beginning to eye Europe for talent, searching for stars who carried mystery and elegance. For Marlene, the path forward was about to open wide, leading her far beyond the smoke-filled cabarets of her youth. Dietrich's turning point came in 1930 with Josef von Sternberg's The Blue Angel. Cast as Lola, the cabaret singer who ruins a professor's life, she embodied sensuality and danger with every note of falling in love again. The film was a sensation in Germany, but more importantly, it caught Hollywood's eye. Paramount brought her to America, determined to make her their answer to Greta Garbo. She arrived in Hollywood draped in mystery. Sternberg became both her mentor and her sculptor, shaping her image with dramatic lighting, shadows across her cheekbones, and costumes that emphasized elegance and allure. Together they made Morocco in 1930, where Dietrich appeared in a tuxedo, kissed another woman, and captivated audiences with audacity. That moment cemented her as something new, a star who embodied glamour but also rebellion. Through the 1,930 seconds, she starred in a string of films that solidified her place among the elite. Shanghai Express, Blonde Venus, The Scarlet Empress. Each role emphasized her as untouchable, the worldly woman who knew more than her male counterparts. The press called her the Divine Dietrich. She became an icon of modern femininity, half goddess, half provocateur. Her husky voice and half-smile seemed to carry secrets the audience could never quite unlock. Fans adored her, yet Hollywood was ruthless. Her films were expensive to make, and when box office numbers faltered, executives whispered that her reign might be ending. She was labeled box office poison by the late 1930s, lumped in with other greats like Katharine Hepburn. But Dietrich was not easily dismissed. She reinvented herself constantly, switching from vamp to comedienne, from empress to weary survivor. Off-screen, her allure grew stronger. She was photographed draped in furs, dressed in men's suits, or reclining with a cigarette in hand. In an age when studios tightly controlled images, she exuded independence. Reporters speculated endlessly about her personal life. Paramount encouraged gossip about male co-stars, yet whispers persisted about her friendships with women. She was playing a dangerous game, balancing the need for a marketable image against the truth of her private world. By the early 1940s, Dietrich had survived the first cycle of Hollywood fame. She would soon use her power, not just for film roles, but for causes that mattered. Yet behind the sharp eyes and luminous gowns, the pressure of secrecy began to weigh heavily. The double life she cultivated was about to intensify. Behind the glamorous photographs, Marlene Dietrich lived a life of hidden intimacy. She moved through circles where secrecy was survival, where parties ended only when dawn arrived, and where love could never be spoken aloud. Biographers note her relationships with both men and women, but in the Hollywood of the 1930s and 1940s, only part of that story could ever reach the public. In Berlin, she had already tasted freedom, drawn to cabarets where boundaries blurred. In America, she found companions who shared the same unspoken understanding. Rumors connected her to actresses like Claudette Colbert and Dolores Del Rio, women who, like Dietrich, knew the stakes of exposure. With men, she entertained high-profile affairs, carefully staged for the gossip columns. With women, she pursued quieter romances, often shielded by coded dinners, private suites, and discreet travels abroad. One of her most enduring connections was with writer Mercedes de Acosta, a woman whose name threaded through many Hollywood whispers. Their letters, often destroyed or locked away, hinted at passion and longing. Dietrich's circle included literary figures, painters, and musicians who lived outside conventional norms. Within those private gatherings, away from the flashbulbs, she could let her guard down. She wore trousers not as costume but as comfort, poured drinks, and sang songs that revealed her truest self. The danger was constant. Morality clauses in contracts gave studios the right to sever ties if rumors grew too strong. Gossip magazines thrived on innuendo, and even an innocent photograph could spark speculation. To protect herself, Dietrich reportedly used hush money more than once, quietly ensuring that indiscretions remained hidden. At 60, she paid to silence a lover who threatened to expose their forbidden affair, proof of how the old fears never fully disappeared. These hidden loves were not without joy. Friends recalled her laughter, her warmth in private, her ability to make anyone feel like the center of her universe. But secrecy came at a cost. Every rendezvous required planning, every gesture measured against risk. In the coded world of old Hollywood, even affection could feel like an act of defiance. The balance grew harder with time. Each year in the spotlight increased the risk of discovery. Each rumor sharpened by a press eager for scandal. And as war loomed and politics shifted, even Dietrich's carefully controlled image began to slip. The private world she cherished was about to clash with the public forces she could not control. As the 1940s deepened, Dietrich's secrets pressed harder against the walls she had built. Hollywood gossip grew louder, with columnists hinting at late-night affairs and whispered indiscretions. Studios, terrified of scandal under the Hays Code, demanded stricter compliance. Contracts included morality clauses that threatened her career if even the faintest rumor of forbidden relationships reached the public. The war years brought her immense respect. She performed tirelessly for Allied troops, risking her safety near front lines. Soldiers adored her courage and generosity, yet Hollywood executives never stopped calculating the risks. Off the battlefield, whispers circulated that her independence, her suits, her friendships with women, all made her dangerous in an industry obsessed with conventional images. By the late 1940s, she faced professional setbacks. Some roles slipped away to younger stars considered less controversial. Studio heads questioned whether audiences still wanted the enigmatic European vamp when America was moving toward wholesome, suburban ideals. The word box office poison still lingered in the background, a cruel reminder of how quickly fame could turn. In her private life, the pressure was crushing. Lovers demanded more, sometimes hinting they might speak publicly. One threatened exposure, forcing Dietrich to pay hush money to silence the story. For her, the transaction was not just financial, but emotional. It was a price she paid to protect not only her career, but also her daughter, her family, and her carefully built legend. Each payment reinforced how precarious her world remained. Loneliness followed. Friends noted that even in crowded rooms, she sometimes seemed distant, as if calculating who might betray her next. The laughter and cigarettes could not fully mask her unease. Fame had given her everything, but it had also locked her inside a cage of expectation and fear. The crisis was not just about gossip. It was about identity. To survive, she had to divide herself into fragments. The public star, the private lover, the mother, the patriot. Holding those pieces together became harder each year, and as age crept in, the fear of fading relevance added yet another weight. At her lowest, Dietrich faced the possibility that she might be remembered more for scandal than for art. Dietrich refused to let scandal or fading roles define her. She reinvented herself as a stage performer, trading Hollywood sets for concert halls. In the 1950 seconds and 1960 seconds, she toured the world, draped in glittering gowns, delivering songs with that husky, unmistakable voice. Audiences from London to Las Vegas packed theaters to see her, not for movies, but for presence alone. Spotlights captured her silhouette, and applause roared like thunder. She cultivated mystique carefully. She appeared on stage in shimmering gowns, then changed into tailored suits for encores. Still daring, still androgynous. Each performance was part show, part confession, an expression of resilience. Behind the scenes, she lived more quietly. Friends and biographers note she maintained a chosen family of confidants, people who accepted her without judgment. In private rooms, she was free to laugh, to love, and to speak openly in ways she never could in the 1930 seconds. The world around her changed. By the late 1960 seconds and 1970 seconds, attitudes toward sexuality began to soften. Younger stars spoke more freely. Movements for liberation gained visibility, and the rigid codes of Hollywood weakened. Dietrich lived long enough to see a shift she could only have dreamed of in her youth. Yet she remained cautious. Her generation had been taught secrecy, and habits formed under threat were not easily broken. As she aged, she became increasingly reclusive. After a stage injury in the 1970 seconds, she withdrew from public life, rarely appearing in front of cameras. She spoke through letters, occasionally through recorded interviews, her voice still commanding even as her body weakened. From her Paris apartment, she watched history unfold, granting rare glimpses into her thoughts but never surrendering her aura of mystery. Looking back, she saw both triumph and cost. She had helped redefine femininity, challenged gender roles, and carved a place for herself that was uniquely hers. Yet the price was steep: secrecy, loneliness, and payments made to protect what the world was not ready to accept. Still, she left behind a blueprint for defiance, a lesson that even within constraints, one could live boldly. Her later reflections carried a quieter wisdom. Fame was fleeting, she admitted, but art and authenticity endured. To those close to her, she spoke of love not as scandal, but as the only truth worth protecting. Marlene Dietrich's life was a story of glamour and concealment, of breathtaking courage and private fear. At 60, she paid to keep a forbidden affair hidden. Yet her true legacy was never the scandal she buried, but the light she cast on stage, in film, and in the lives of those she touched. She taught audiences that a woman could be powerful, mysterious, and entirely her own. She also showed the cost of silence, how much love and humanity could be hidden just out of reach. Her journey reminds us that behind every legend is a human being carrying burdens unseen. The gowns, the tuxedos, the songs were all fragments of a woman who dared to live against the grain. Today we look back not to judge, but to understand the price of survival in a world that offered little mercy. What do you think of Dietrich's story? Was she a pioneer, a prisoner of her era, or both? Share your thoughts below, and do not forget to subscribe so you will not miss more hidden Hollywood stories. These lives, their secrets, and their courage still speak to us now, urging us to remember and reflect.